Customer called us because they saw a depression in the front of the roof of their home that were making them a little nervous. They wanted us to come check it out. They also wanted us to look at some gutters. We're up on a roof in beautiful Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania today. Drew Cope with Cope Construction and Renovation. We're gonna show you what we found. That's next on this edition of Forever Home. Here we go. Customer called us because they did not like the look of the depression that they had in this front roof, and maybe we'll edit in a before picture and show you what that looks like here. But we just got up on the roof and we noticed that there was some significant challenges going on, and we want to show you what caused that. Let's go over and take a look. So you can see an extensive amount of water damage taking place right here in the roof deck, and that problem goes all the way down. You can see just how wet this is, all the way down to the bottom. We got another big depression in the plywood down here, and this whole bottom edge all the way across. It's just sopping wet. The plywood's swollen up. This is eaten away. I mean, I can almost put my hand through it, and we might do that here in a second. But what caused this? Why are they having a problem in this section of the roof? So we've got a couple different things going on. We have a valley that comes down, and then it looks like they did a real nice job with this piece of aluminum flashing in here underneath the valley layers. Beautiful, good, brings the water out right here. Okay, no problem. You've got a fair amount of concentration of water that's dropping here, but that's normal to be expected. Where I think they made a mistake was with this gutter right here. And you'll hear me a lot of times talk about how we don't like to drain gutters and downspouts onto another roof. It's like the Grand Canyon just eating away at your shingle. And what's worse in this setup is that as the water was draining out of the gutter this direction, it's actually running uphill and under the shingles. So I think what happened is between the water coming cascading down the valley, the water being pushed up this way running uphill, and maybe, you know, some freezing in the wintertime broke some things loose, but over time, water made its way into here. Now the shingles didn't look that bad. The shingles, the stone coverage was still there, but obviously water's been getting in here for an extended period of time. We've got a gaping hole. We've got some damage to one of the rafters here we're going to look at. The only thing that saved them, that kept them from having water coming into their house, is that this porch roof is an addition. It's a second roof. You can see here's the original down here, and you'll give you some context for that if I walk over to this side of the roof over this direction. The original house roof ran continuous, and then at some point this was added as an addition. And so the only thing keeping water out of the house was the original roof that was underneath that. So we need to get this fixed before that eventually gives way. Now, all that water was getting down into that old roof deck. Where was it coming out? The customer told me they were having a lot of problems with muddy streaks and ugly water mess coming down here. And initially I thought it was just overflow from things missing the gutter and coming across. But as we look more closely, you'll see that the staining that's happening right here is all coming out at this low spot, which is probably aluminum capping under the support beam that runs across to that post. And so as that water was getting into this soffit area, it was probably running to this end, and that was the lowest spot where it found its way to come out. So is there other water damage to this beam in here? We don't really know. We're gonna rip the plywood up from the top side. We're gonna see what we can see. And maybe we have good news, maybe we have bad news. We're not gonna know until we get to the part. But this water coming out here was actually leaking in through the roof up above. And so when I tell you that, you know, this area of the roof is having problems, it doesn't take but my foot to lean on it. And you can see this just ripping right apart. So I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this or not. We've actually got standing water down in there, top of that soffit ceiling. So we've got some beams here. The part that I can see, it looks good. We'll have to get that further apart and see if there's any damage to the bottom of those or not. Let's go up and look at the top part. So Kevin's gonna help me out here. I wanna show you just how bad this water damage is. It looks like things are okay on the surface, but over time, with wood this soft, the nails are gonna work their way out, the shingles are gonna blow off, and you're gonna have even more coming in. Kevin, go ahead, give it a whirl, see what happens. Yep, I mean, plywood should not be able to bend like that, absolutely. What about that next bay over? Is it gonna come apart too? Yeah, it's just turning to sawdust. So we'll get the nails, the crowbars out, and we'll rip those out and see what kind of damage we find. But like I said, the top of this rafter's already got some issues, and we can see that roof just runs straight on down to the bottom. So we'll have to get in there and see how it looks when we get it all apart, and we'll cut back to that on the next clip. All right, so we've got these pieces of plywood removed, and the only thing that saved them from getting water in the house was this old 3-tab shingle roof that was left in here when the porch addition was put on and the new architecturals were put up. And as you can see down here in the bottom, we actually have standing water in that soffit channel, soffit ceiling. So the water's just been coming down, pouring down that shingle roof off over to the edge, and then they've got these purlon strips, these 1x3 pieces of lath stripping spacing out the soffit, and that comes over here, and I'll take you down and I'll show you this piece in a second. But you'll notice that this piece goes underneath the beam. So the structural beam has been saved. It's up out of the water, and anything that's in the water is going to be purely decorative for the piece of aluminum capping that separates the non-vented soffit from the ventilated soffit. Now, I'm glad that we have ventilated soffit here. The challenge is not actually doing any good because there's nowhere at the top for that air to exit out. So it's just allowing some air in at the bottom, but you're not getting the true ventilation effect that you would want in a roof space where you have air coming up through the bottom. Now, I may go up in the attic and look. We could potentially drill a couple of 4-inch holes down through that roof deck and in and allow that air to flow up and out through the ridge vent. We'll have to go in the attic and see if that makes sense or not to do that. So this is that decorative beam pocket that I was referring to. Normally I would expect there to be structural support in there, but based on what we're seeing up above, what's in there is probably not mission critical. It's just decorative, like I said, to separate the non-vented from the vented. And so while yes, there's probably some water damage in there, so long as it hasn't gotten into that wall, then we're probably in pretty good shape. We can see right here, that's been caulked good. So the water's coming out through this weep hole and behind and coming down the face of the siding. And the danger would be that if the water was getting not only behind the siding, but behind the 1 inch of blue foam that's back here, we can see that up there. If it was getting behind the foam and into the structural framing of this part of the house, then we might have some challenges there, but they'd probably be seeing some water damage on the inside by that point if that was occurring. So the fact of how this was designed is a nice saving grace. We don't have to give them any bad news. And I like, well, we don't have to give customers bad news. That's a good thing. Let's get this plywood cut and start putting this roof back together. All right, so we're making some progress. Of course, we've got our new plywood sheathing up here, OSB installed. We drilled a couple of holes up here at the top edge. Maybe we'll edit in a photo of that and show you that, just because there was no ventilation in here before. Now we vented that into the attic space so it can come out through the ridge vent here, get some good airflow, help prevent ice damming in the wintertime, and also, you know, keep moisture from building up there in the summertime, prematurely wearing out that wood from the bottom where it just gets saturated and soaked and the moisture doesn't have anywhere to vent out. Now it's able to vent through. So Norm's finishing nailing that in. We're gonna be installing a transition strip here at the top because when they framed this roof originally, they left us like a 1-inch high lip here, transitioning up to this roof. So we're gonna fill that in and try to make that a little bit cleaner so we don't abuse the shingles quite so harshly at that point. To install the ice and water shield, put the drip edge on, and rock and roll with the shingles. Here we go. And through the magic of television, we have the finished product here, ready to rock and roll. Watertight and happy. Try to get the sun glare out of the camera for you there. So you can see it's a little bit brighter than the original roof. As we found different places of the original roof, we're pretty sure this is what it was, and it got darkened and faded over time. So we think this is a pretty good match. It will fade in a little bit over time, but they are due for a new roof on the rest of it. They're kicking the can down the road just a little bit for right now, and that's all right. So what do we have to do now to prevent this from reoccurring in the future? Well, number one, you take a look at that gutter right there. And that's kind of how it was set up, that all the rainwater was coming out and running and then uphill, up into the shingles, hitting the water coming down from that valley. And the two of them intersecting right there, I'm sure, was part of the problem for what caused this damage to occur. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna put a left end cap on this. We're gonna raise that downspout up. We're gonna cut a new dropout over here. We're gonna drop that down. We're gonna pipe it down the lower gutter. We're gonna upgrade that lower downspout from a 2x3 to a 3x4, get that piped into the underground system, and the homeowner's gonna work on trying to find where the end of that pipe is. And so they have a new roof with new plywood and new shingles, at least on this section, so we prevent any more crises from occurring. Like I said, it was that old 3-tab shingle roof was the only thing saving them from water damage inside the house, so we're glad we were able to get that taken care of. We get the dump trailer loaded, ready to get hauled out of here first thing in the morning, get that to the landfill and dispose of that. And tomorrow, Norm will be back. He's gonna take care of the kick-out flashing. I'll walk over and show you this to you. What we wanna make sure has happened is that when any water that comes down this step flash here reaches the bottom, that it can't just run behind the siding. We need a piece of metal that comes forward out, called a kick out flashing, to kick that water into this gutter here. And we'll do the same thing with the piece of J channel when we put the vinyl siding back up. So Norm's got at least an hour or two's worth of work in the morning, getting all this sort of finalized and back together. And then the next step on this house, what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be adding some additional hidden hangers. You can see they're only going about every 3 feet here with these nail spikes, and they're pulling out. The wood obviously has gotten old over time. It's just not holding those nails like it used to. Moisture, heat, expansion, contraction. So they're starting to pull loose. So we're gonna go through and put hidden hangers in with screw type fasteners much more frequently throughout here, and then gutter guard the whole thing after we clean out the rain gutter. So that's going to take place. And then they're having challenges with this gutter overflowing at the end, simply because of the length and the pitch, and that side happened to be as low as it has to get pitch to that side. With us putting gutter guard on it, they already have a spillover problem, and it's going to get even worse with the gutter guard. So we're going to upgrade that to a 6-inch gutter, give them a little bit more width down there at the far end so that water can't overshoot the end, and we'll show you that probably more tomorrow. If we can help solve a problem for you, give our team a call. We are available weekdays 9:30 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon at 484-748-0008. Choose option 2 for CopeBUILT, your full service construction and renovation company, and extension 2. For new projects, there's nothing we don't do. Roofing, siding, windows, doors, decks, anything on the interior of your home, kitchens, basements, bathroom, plumbing, drywall, electrical, spackle paint. Build your custom dream house, in addition, a garage. Let us know what problem we can solve for you. Remember, we're finished with it. You're gonna be proud to say it's not just done, it was CopeBUILT. We'll catch you guys on the next edition of Forever Home. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.